So everybody says this after every single AEW Dynamite, but it is quite fun. I enjoy it, and that's when you do get a good All Elite Wrestling episode. They go, oh, the feeling is back, and then the other side of the tribalism yell at you. But the point is this, I actually think since the start of 2025, AEW has been doing a damn good job, and last night's Dynamite was just yet more proof. Because essentially what are we doing is we're going back to the OGs. I mean, some of the people we're going to talk about today aren't even AEW OGs, but they kind of exist within their own planes, and they just feel like fresh talent. And really, that's all I ever want from my professional wrestling show. I mean, we talk about this on all my videos. I just want to be able to sit down and go, oh my gosh, I never thought that person was going to do something with that person. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I get to dive into this storyline. And as you've seen from the thumbnail, to me, it is MJF and Hangman Adam Page, who we should hang the entire company on and just let them run wild, because I just think they're great. Now, MJF has become a very interesting person. The way I always describe him is he is the walking embodiment of you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain, which is kind of interesting because he has played both babyface and heel to varying successes. Well, actually, I think he was great at both of them, but people will debate that until the cows come home. But I just think it's like any performer in the history of the world. If you give him something he can really sink his teeth into, all of a sudden his eyes get bright and he gets a skip in his step. And if he has something that's maybe not as exciting, he'll still do a damn good job, but he won't be able to sort of live up to maybe the expectations you have of him, because that's just how people work, especially in sports, right? I know that wrestling is predetermined sports, but how many times have you watched a game between sort of a lower league team and a top team, and all of a sudden the lower league team become the greatest team you've ever seen in your life because they're like, oh my gosh, we've got to raise our game, because of course the dangling carrot is there. And as for Hangman Adam Page, I mean, that is a guy, well, MJF too, but that's a guy that has been with AEW since day one. And he has been on an amazing journey. Once again, somebody that's played babyface, somebody that's played heel. But there's so much depth to his character. And some people like to roll their eyes at this, which is perfectly fine. There's comments down there. You can get really mad at me and call me horrible things. But out of all of professional wrestling, I think there are a few personas that you can actually sit down and discuss as much as Hangman Adam Page, because he's been an anxious mess. He's been kind of a drunk mess. He's had good days. He's had bad days. He screwed over Kenny Omega that time because people got in his head. He's just a walking human being. That's why I'm so fascinated by him as a wrestling personality. Is the worst thing I've ever said in my entire life, because he sometimes feels real, and a lot of time he feels real. His actions aren't based on whether the fact he's walking on the good side or the bad side. They're based on what his current mentality is and how he sees the world from his perspective, and I just think that's really cool, and it's really difficult to pull off, but he's able to do it all the time. For example, he comes down on Dynamite to accept Max Caster's open challenge, and everybody cheers him, even though he's hinted that he would like to apologize for burning down Swerve Strickland's house, but he still hasn't done it. And yet there is here it comes, the worst thing I'll ever say, there's a genuineness. Someone punched me in the face. Man, Adam Page. But it is there, and I just find him very, very relatable. And while MJF is probably the polar opposite of that, because he's almost like a cartoon villain at times, it just works. And that's the secret sauce of wrestling. If you get over and the fans are connected to it, you don't really have to sit down and kind of break it down too much, because whatever you're doing is working. And these two coming together, I mean, it's just brilliant. And we've only sort of touched the surface of this. And it is one of those AEW stories we are letting breed, and we are giving it a few weeks. And it's certainly something I would like them to do more of. Like the tag team scene at the moment is brilliant, but we kind of are just feeding teams to the Hurt Syndicate. Again, on the one side, brilliant. Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, MVP are fantastic. On the other, we probably could stretch them out a little bit. But with MJF and Hangman, because they have just kind of been bumping into each other over the last few weeks, I think the big face-to-face is on next week's Dynamite, and that is when we're going to get into nitty-gritty. I believe that's week 5. That's absolutely perfect, and that's really good booking, because they will do what all good wrestling feuds in 2025 do. They will mix kayfabe with reality, and we'll all be sat there going, oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. And I bet there's a bunch of stuff that we're not even thinking about now that they will say, and I hope they do sort of tie into things that have happened in the story as well. It's like when CM Punk was talking to Cody, I think it was, and they were talking about things that had happened in the real world, but then from nowhere, Punk talked about Cody's knee, which Kevin Owens had injured at Backlash, whatever the flub it was. It wasn't Backlash, Bash in Berlin, wherever that first match was, and I love that. Like, maybe it was a little bit silly, but wrestling should be silly. It's a silly endeavor by the very idea of what it is. And I just got excited about it. When they announced next week, face-to-face, just telling you they're going to have a big promo off, I honestly would try and find a way to move all these pieces so that MJF and Hangman Adam Page are feuding after the AEW World title, which is the seed that we have planted, because Max said, oh, by the way, I'm going to be a 2-time champion before you're a 2-time champion, and then they should feud over that belt for the majority of the second part of 2025. And I love everything. Well, I'm kind of hit and miss with everything that Moxley and Cope are doing. But I would just shift them down to the, I don't want to say the mid-card level because it always sounds so disparaging. I'm not saying that. Let's look at it in a positive Pete way. I just think we should move Hangman and MJF right into that position and let them run wild because I think they're brilliant and it's something that gets me excited. And I suppose what's going on the undercard that has similar tones to that, which is what I was talking about earlier, is Powerhouse Hobbs and Big Bill. Now again, Big Bill's been in WWE, he's been in TNA, he has been around the houses, but I suppose this is the best version we've ever seen of him, especially as a single star, and therefore you can see him a bit differently. And he's such a unique anomaly because he's massive. Like I think he's legit 7 feet. Let's say he's a legit 6'10". It doesn't matter. But sometimes those people kind of get pigeonholed. He doesn't. He doesn't move like a... He does. He uses his giantness, but he also has a unique quality to him, to use that word again. So he is able to stand out. And Powerhouse Hobbs, I said this on an older video, he can be world champion one day, and he's got really cool music. So as soon as those two smashed into each other, I was like, yes, there it is. And it's talking about the AEW feeling coming back, which again is a stupid term. If you can sort of layer up a pay-per-view, you have Hangman versus MGF, you have Powerhouse Hobbs versus Big Bill, and I'm sure a bunch of other people that we'll talk to as we do discuss this, then that's the balance that you do want, and it feels nothing like WWE, which is a good thing. I want AEW to feel like AEW, I want WWE to feel like WWE, I want New Japan, Ring of Honor, all these things to feel like separate entities. It's why I love the fact that WWE has gone so bombastic with their production, because I actually think, sure, maybe some people will be turned off if they're like, oh, I watch another wrestling show, and the money isn't there, for lack of a better term. But I think that's almost doing a wrestling fan's intelligence a disservice, because other people will be like, oh my gosh, it's like going to watch, what Captain America's just about to come out, right? It's like going to watch Captain America, and the next week you want to watch an independent movie, and of course you're going to get different vibes. And that's pushing it apart a little bit too much. I think there are more similarities. But again, I do think it's an area you can lean on, all of a sudden make yourself feel like you're your own big deal, because you do exist within your own universe, and you're not leaning on to other things. And that's where I think Dynamite and AEW in general is flying. Saying that, I think the connection between Collision and Dynamite is brilliant right now. Somebody messaged me earlier going, oh, Simon, I can't believe the only thing we did on Dynamite for Tony Storm and Mariah May was a Mariah May promo. It's just people like watching Collision. Now, maybe that's something that AEW needs to take on and really try and push people towards it, but they did an awesome angle on Collision where Tony Storm, I can't remember the person's name, that's bad of me, but it was an enhancement talent, and Mariah May, whipped this person that looked like Tony Storm. She dressed this enhancement talent up like Tony Storm. And then, of course, with some camera trickery, after she had won, ta-da, out comes Luther, and the real Tony Storm was there and whooped her ass. It was just brilliant. It was just excellent. And, of course, you can't have this conversation about people feeling quintessentially AEW without Harley Cameron. People keep saying to me, oh, I don't think Harley Cameron is ready to win the championship yet. What does that mean? Like, there's this idea that you have to be a Will Ospreay level wrestler to get a championship in wrestling these days. No, you don't. She's entertaining. She's fun. I've watched most of her matches because, again, I get to watch everything, and you have seen her improved. She's way more than competent. She's a pretty decent wrestler, and if you take in her experience, she's a really good wrestler. That's only going to improve. And if wrestling is about moments and timing and feeling the crowd and giving them what they want, she could beat Mercedes Moné for the TBS Championship and then lose it back next week, or whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter, because the whole point is, if you can operate it right and you do have the story and you have planned out the narrative long term, it will only benefit her because fans will get behind her even more, especially because we're going to be in Australia. I don't think she will win. I think Mercedes Moné will win. But to me, of course, you want them to have a good match. That's the whole bread and butter of pro wrestling. But as long as it has that electricity and that atmosphere and the fans really buy in, you can do whatever you want. And also, you don't want every single match to be the same. You don't want every single match to feel like the most serious, real thing ever, because then none of them feel like the most serious, real thing ever. You need that variety. So again, somebody else has totally smashed it, taken their 5 minutes here and 5 minutes there, and turned themselves into a draw. It certainly sounds like. I don't really get into ratings. I think they're quite boring. But again, if you did want some receipts, apparently when she did her halftime show on Collision, ratings flew through the roof compared to what they were. So these are the people that you should lean on. It's very similar to a Jey Uso situation. If you see the winds blowing in a certain direction, just go with it. And even if it turns out you were massively mistaken, it doesn't matter, because it's always better to take the risk. There was 2 decades of pro wrestling where we took no risks apart from the odd one here and there, and it was really dull and it was really boring. And wrestling is the most important of the least important things, so you should absolutely do it. I thought it was a shame that Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega went on this Dynamite, but again, I guess you can't feature everybody. And I think when you do start shining a spotlight on your original talent, for lack of a better term, then you can do stuff with people like the Hurt Syndicate. I know all the ex-WWE guys. Can't stand that term, as I go back to being a negative Nancy. But they have to work somewhere, and once again, for those 2 decades, WWE was the only big house in town. You want someone not to work there just in case in 2019 an alternative picks up, they go, oh, I can go work there now. To me, it's all about what we're doing with them on the screen. And maybe there are some people that turn on and go, I'm not going to watch AEW because there's a bunch of old dudes to use their comments, but I can't relate to that because I don't have that thought process. To me, it's more about, was I entertained? Did I enjoy this? Did I enjoy that? And the Hurt Syndicate run as the tag team champions is flipping brilliant. They are the coolest cats in school. Once again, it doesn't even come back to heels versus faces. They're just badasses who wreck people. And it was a shame the Guns only just came back and they had to lose. But if that's the way we're doing it, that's the way we're doing it. But they found a way to be crushed, but also come across like these baby faces that were just fighting and they wanted to win. And once again, while I personally wasn't a massive fan of Lance Archer and Brian Cage just coming out being like, yeah, we'll have a title shot next, it does open up a wonderful 180, right, to do something completely different. So it won't be like the Private Party match, it won't be like the Guns match, it will basically be a big men slapping man meat match. And if we continue that on, the benefit and the net positive is going to be those AEW tag team titles feel like they mean something again. And if it all ends with the Young Bucks walking out and staring off at the Hurt Syndicate, you can sign me up, because again, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin versus Matt and Nick Jackson was never on my bingo card, mostly because that's not how bingo works, but that would get me excited and make me go, thank goodness AEW does exist, because we get to go to Bizarro World where these matches are actually possible. And I would go as far to say that maybe the Death Rider storyline is, I don't want to call it bad. It's not bad. I can sit there and I can enjoy it for what it was. But it's not in my super favorite narratives that we're doing right now. And that's what I mean about maybe just shuffling around the card a little bit. I think having John Moxley on your show is a massive plus. It's exactly the same for Adam Copeland. Not entirely sure why Jay White isn't like, Adam, why do you get the title shot, man? I've been doing this for a long time. But I would like to think that AEW, especially given what they have done recently, has tied that in. And so if we do go, I've found a plot hole, in a month's time we go, it wasn't a plot hole, it was just the rules, and it was taking me down a specific path, but we do have to wait and see. But it is okay. I think it just needs a big reveal or a big twist or a big shift at some point. We'll have to see what happens at Revolution and coming out the other side. But I wouldn't be adverse to switching that title to somebody else and then again moving Cope to a different position. I mean, the other reason that I liked AEW, and this has to happen with the TNT Championship. I love Daniel Garcia. I think he's got all the potential in the world. But the TNT Championship just doesn't mean anything at the moment. It just doesn't, especially if we compare it to what it was like a few years ago. But what we have started doing, which gives me hope for that belt, is all of a sudden the trios titles are back in play. Had that awesome match between the Death Riders and the Undisputed Kingdom. Always nice to see Adam Cole and co. back on Dynamite. And while they didn't win, it was so good, I would like to think you would try to capitalize on this. And you have Samoa Joe's brand new team of the Ops. It's a stupid name, right? If it makes me laugh, it's a stupid name. But I don't care about names in pro wrestling. Somebody was called Dolph Ziggler. They went back to being Nick Nemeth and everyone still called him Dolph Ziggler. You can get away with it ever you want. Ricky Starks is probably going to become Ricardo Rodriguez. No, you can't do that. He already exists. You know what I'm saying? You can be Raquel's brother. Let's just move on. But it's a stupid name. However, the team is awesome. Shibata, Hook, and Samoa Joe. And now they're going to have a three-way or a trios match with the Patriarchy, also have a dumb name, by the way, but they're brilliant as well. So all of a sudden you have these trios teams building up too. So let's lean into that. Let's make those belts mean something. There are way too many championships in all wrestling promotions, but if they are there, they don't have to be featured on every single show. But again, let's just do what we're doing with the AEW tag team belts and just make them mean something, because then there can always be something you can lean on when it comes to individual characters. That's the cool thing about the trios belts. I mean, let's say you've got nothing for Claudio, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta. If they're running wild as the trios champions and they do have something and they almost become more important together than they would do singularly. I love everything that we're doing with Chris Statlander or Willow Nightingale, even though it does irk me a bit in my tum-tum because we did abandon that heel face thing. I thought we could have done way more with this, but at least they've had a few backstage segments. I mean, Megan Bain and Penelope Ford have now teamed up, enjoyed the squash, very much enjoyed Chris versus Penelope, and even the commentators were telling you it's going to be Willow, who now also has a feud with Marina Shafir. So there's your layers too with that, right? So this is all good, and as far as I'm concerned, talking about OG AEWs, which seems to be the theme of this video, anything we can do with Chris Statlander and Willow Nightingale, we should do. I think they're brilliant. I think one day we should be main eventing pay-per-views with those two taking each other on, one as a babyface, one as a heel for the AEW Women's Championship. That's how good they think they are. How you get back there now without it being a super mess, I don't know, but I just think they have great chemistry. If that all-out street fight match is anything to go off from 2024, yeah, this should be like Hangman Swerve Strickland feud that never goes away, but it does seem like they're going to be friends again. And I would be happy to do the separation part 2 if this time we're going to go all in and turn it into a multi-year thing. Of course, we would laugh at first. We're horrible wrestling fans, but I can't believe we're doing it again. This goes back to what we were talking about. You're allowed to try and fail as long as you learn from those mistakes and switch it all around. So just a great show is what I thought. I massively, just every single match and every single angle I enjoyed. Again, the only one I'm a bit like, I can take it or leave it, is the Death Riders. But maybe that's because there was an original plan here that we didn't follow up on for one reason or another. And I like having Adam Copeland in AEW. How the hell he's like 51, 52 years old and moves like he does. Sometimes people feel he moves like a 50-year-old. I'm like, well, he really doesn't. He does move like he's slowed down a little bit, as he should be allowed to, given his age. But if you find some other 50-year-olds trying to do fitness stuff, they ain't moving like Adam Copeland. So I think that's a little bit mean. There's probably some other stuff that I haven't talked about here. The show this weekend, the Grand Slam show in Australia, I think it's been on a little bit of a roller coaster, and it is a shame. It would be much better if it was a massive pay-per-view in a stadium. I'm not sure what they did confirm, what they didn't confirm, but let's just hope the quality of their thing is amazing. And again, you've got Will Ospreay and Kenny Omega teaming up. There could be worse things in the world, and there's no way they're going to have a bad match against Takeshita and Kyle Fletcher. And once again, while my personal tastes are always to make sure you have enough story binding these things together, at the same time, it's going to be so awesome and so fun and like watching superheroes fight, that I think you do want to have that as well. I'm not saying that other companies don't do that, they do. But AEW certainly likes to have it as a calling card, hence why they have the tagline, we're the best wrestler. And I think this will be so superb. I'm not going to be able to... We could get on our nitpicking train for sure, but oh, they should have done this, they should have done that. Sometimes I just want to sit back and go, my gosh, I am observing just the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. And don't forget, words like stupid and ridiculous are an absolute positive. So I just hope that we keep relying on the people that do feel exclusive or fresh or new or linked to AEW in some way. Because, I mean, just summarize what we've already gone down into. If you did MJF versus Hangman Adam Page in a really long feud for that world title, Hangman is the good guy and MJF is the bad guy, it's just, I don't want to say it's so obvious because... I mean, I guess it is so obvious, but sometimes getting to the obvious maybe takes a bit longer than we're expecting because we're trying to overthink it. But it's exactly what I want to see. And let's say Hangman does win, then goes back into a feud with Swerve. MJF can spin off into a feud with Kenny Omega or something like that. It's just things you never would have seen at one point in professional wrestling, and that's why it's great that AEW exists. And again, going back to the video we did the other day, one of the reasons Ricky Starks jumping to WWE/NXT is so cool is because he was in AEW. It just creates this wonderful mentality, this wonderful environment where we can get more excitement and more hoopla out of it, and I never want it to go away again. You know, once WCW died, it was some barren times for pro wrestling, and I don't feel that way now. And yes, we could have made this video about ratings and attendances and things like that, but not once in my life I've ever watched a show and gone, I think I enjoyed it. Let me just check the attendance. Oh, it was bad. I don't like it. I didn't like it now. I never want to be that person, and I don't want to be too morbid. But the main reason is that one day I'm going to be dead. And if I wasted my time staring at numbers to determine whether I found something fun, well, put me in the grave right now. Now listen, AEW videos always spark off in the comments, but that's great. Tell me what you honestly think. You're allowed your opinion, even if you think AEW sucks. I respect it, even if you think I'm an idiot. Also, please do like the video, share the video, subscribe, click the notification bell. Again, my video on Ricky Starks is on the screen right now. We talk about what his name could be in NXT. That could be super duper fun and sort of ties into the ops as well. If you are into fitness, go to grillermind.com/Simon. You can Simon get 10% off. These are the fitness supplements I use because they're awesome. Otherwise, I'm on all social media. I'm on Cameo. I'm ProWrestlingTees.com/Simon Miller. If you go into that description, you will find some links, and any help and support is massively appreciated. Otherwise, keep enjoying wrestling because it is the best. See you soon.